cool introduction. You got Oscar, and you got Alphabet, and you got Spotify, and you got this other guy named Cameron Koczon, so that's fun. I go by Fictive Cameron on the internet. I'm founder of a company called Fictive Kin, if you know us. It would be from some client work that we did, or from a conference that we used to run called Brooklyn Beta. That guy's running for president now. That was cool. We made a to-do list app with Tina Roth-Eisenberg, Swiss Miss. Yeah, she deserves a cheer. It's a fun one. We made a podcast app with Alan Yu. He should be appearing, but he's not. There we go. It was nice. If you like podcasts, I'd check it out. Yesterday, we released a free daily meditation app if you like to meditate, or you think you might like to meditate. Very easy. All you do is go to an app store. Well, just one, iPhone. And then you got to type the words tap in, a little space in between there. You can try it out, and you'll be one of these orbs, when it shows up at 3 p.m. And if there's lots of you, then we'll get more orbs. I'd like lots of orbs, so help out if you can. If you don't know who we are, it's okay. It's no big deal. I'm just a person. But I have a website with 27 dogs verifying that I'm a pretty nice guy. So if you want to check it out, fictivecameron.com. I got the references. So we got the theme, experimentation, and I was like, shit, what type of experimentation? It's like we could talk about the fun kind. We do the fun kind. When we want to screw around with push notifications, we made this thing called Dreminder. I don't know if you remember, people had forgotten about Dre, but we help you remember with a notification at 4:20 on Friday. It just says Dre. And then if you want, you can put yourself in this like redraw of the cover, something to do. Alexa came out, and we said, okay, we should make one called Mortal Kombat. And if you say Alexa Mortal Kombat, it'll just play a little bit of Mortal Kombat's theme song. Kids like it. These are my nephews and that guy's kids. That happened for like an hour. Did it again. We like cards, and these nightmarish potato people were kind of ruined the fun for us, so we made an internal card game. Then we were like, cool, let's make real playing cards with our friends, Alonzo and Jessica and Frank Camaro, real cards, business model for a thing. That's not Steve Jobs. That's kind of funny. A little clock for your startup shit. And then there's another kind of experimentation we do. It's like more cerebral. That's what a lot of people do. They A/B test some home pages and optimize some user flows and stuff like that, which is cool. We did that for a Rookie magazine, and we do it for Samsung and Ogilvy and Kickstarter and Paperless Post. And that's kind of helping you go up the mountain. That's a picture of a ewe, which is a female sheep, going up a mountain, EWE, oh shit. Problem with going up a mountain is you might hit a local maximum. It's from What About Bob? You should know that. We do some work with people where we're trying to figure out, is there a bigger, better mountain that we can get you up on? Climbing up a mountain, you never really know that there's another cool one back there. So I figured I'd talk about that because it's kind of like life and death, the butterfly in a skull. Okay, so when people hire us, they kind of hire us to invent a product or a brand or reinvent a product or a brand. And we just kind of brought that together because it's starting to get a little muddled. So either they show up with an idea and they're like, hey, you got to help us make that idea. Or they show up with some shit show that's happened after a while of doing whatever they've been doing. And they're like, please help us. We thought we could do it and we couldn't. Or we can, but it just took us too long and now it's all over the place. Help us just sort of recenter and get back on track. Those are kind of the two things. So I thought I'd talk about that. Why might that be interesting? I don't know. One is that most people only play that game once. Like if you founded Spotify, you made Spotify, and off you go. Or actually, most people never do it, but if you do it once and you're successful, you kind of stay with it. If you do it once and you fail, probably you're a little bit sad and maybe you stop. So there's not a lot of codified knowledge over the 0 to 60 mile an hour part of creating a product. And it's also uniquely difficult. We made this one where even if you think it's going great, you could still be screwed. We made this one called This with this CEO named Andrew Golis. He's a great CEO. Featured in the App Store back in the day, written up in the New York Times. There's a little illustration handing out the logo and stuff. TechCrunch, funded by the president of Tumblr, the Knight Foundation, and everything. RIP. Good try. We tried pretty hard, and a lot was going well, but then still something can sneak out and get you. So it's good to learn some stuff about it, and there's some high-pressure constraints. You've got X dollars, you've got that, which means Y time. You take your dollar stack, you turn it sideways, it's time. You got people, some good, some bad, and then you have to invent a new product that people want. We have all good people. I'm just saying other people have some good, some bad. So what are the tips and tricks? How might one who has to do this do it well? Well, you can really just improve your chances because, VCs, 1 in 10, I guess, if you're good, and so you're most likely going to fail, but we can do some things to improve your chances. The best outcome to remember is solving the problem. The second best outcome relates to what Jen talks about, which is like pulling the ripcord very quickly and very cheaply so you have more money and energy and morale to try again. The worst outcome is spend all the money and not solve it. For some reason, people love choosing that outcome. And I don't think it even needs to happen, ever. Like, you should either do 1 or 2. 3 seems really ridiculous. So what might you do? I'll just tell you some things that we've learned. First thing you should know is that product quality is relative, okay? So there's no such thing as a good or bad product in an absolute sense. There's good in the real world absolute, like swimming pools and naps, and paper cuts and hypocrisy are absolute bads. But in a product, it's totally relative. You take these 2 screwdrivers, both great screwdrivers, you got no judgment about each one, and then all of a sudden this screw shows up, and you're like, fuck that screwdriver, I don't want that one. But it's not a bad screwdriver, it's red, it's, it cares, but it just can't do the job you want it to do. So, the first thing you need to do is remember that a product is a means, not an end, and you got to give yourself something to measure against, okay? So you say, oh, I heard that at Google maybe they make a little video, and I heard at Amazon they make a press release. We write a /purpose, so you can go to fictivekin.com/purpose, and we tell you why we made the whole company and what we're measuring success by. We do that for our to-do list app and some other ones. We do it internally. We don't always share it publicly, but that's good. Now you know what would make your product good. The next thing you got to do is remember redwood seeds. Everybody thinks about redwood seeds all the time. That's the biggest tree by volume. It's called General Sherman. Cameron, how do you know the biggest tree? I looked it up on list of superlative trees, and that seemed like a funny Wikipedia subject. The tallest one is Hyperion. That one's cool. It's a secret. They won't tell us where that is because people will screw it up, of course. But they both start as this little seed, okay? This guy doesn't have a weirdly big hand. It's just a regular hand zoomed in on. It's a super tiny seed that creates this gigantic tree. And that's a good metaphor to have. It's in a Ridley Scott movie too. Big things have small beginnings. It's good stuff. But you have to remember that when you get into a product, and people forget. When they start to do a product, they feel like there has to be everything. But you don't realize that nothing good comes from addition early on. All the good stuff comes from subtracting or subtracting and recentering on a new focus, okay? So Flickr did that, photos. At first they were a big old game. People were taking photos. You get rid of all that other crap, you center on photos. Flickr, Instagram did the same thing. You go check in, you get rid of all that, just make photos. Okay, cool. So it really works well for photo apps. It does for other things too. But how do you find your product core? Cameron, how do you find your product core? It's a good question. We have a little game called Is It Still a Product? So you take a product, it's Twitter, okay? And you don't need to use a real product. You could use wireframes of your own or a list of features that you have, and you just rip part of it out. Trending topics, I'm so sorry. It's gone. And what is left, is it still a product? It's pretty straightforward. Is it still a product? You could say it's a better product or a worse product, but that thing is still a product. It's just now you don't know what's trending. You can do the same thing to the moments, especially the moments, and the notifications. You can get rid of that, the search and who to follow, and the privacy and the little stats and the little image tweet that you can do, and you still have a product. But what's left there is writing and reading tweets. You get rid of that, you don't have a product, you're just sitting there. I don't know what you're doing, you logged in. And so that's the core. That's what you need to make first. When somebody shows up and they say, we have to have this, they don't. Rip it out. Is it still a product? No, or yes, it's still a product, then that's not core. So now you know your core. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's a military term. Most people, when they start making an app, they take A to B, and they just say, okay, we're going to take this list of features, and we're going to run like crazy, and we're going to get rid of them all, and at B, so much money, I didn't make them animate, and I regret it. But instead, what happens is they get into the middle, they get all tangled up, they never get to B. Dotted line means they didn't make it. So instead, what you got to do is take that big line, cut it up into line segments, and take each one of those and wrap it into a nice little circle that is a complete product. And then you grow it out in concentric circles. And at each line, you're still a complete product. It's just more fully featured, it looks better, it works better, things like that. In reality, that's very symmetrical, but it's kind of more like at each stage, you're smarter than you were before, so you can kind of recenter your project or product and make adjustments on that. The next one is people ASAP, as soon as peopleable. That was funny to me this morning. And it's much sooner than you think. Everybody's always like, it's not ready. You just got to add this and it's ready. It's not ready. We got to make it ready. And it's ready right now. And the way that you force that is we come up with a thing called the Seinfeld app from the television show Seinfeld, which you should know. And basically Seinfeld is a show about nothing. This is an app that does nothing. It's the very first thing you always make. The little blue circle. You can log in, you can log out, you can create an account. Reset your password in case you already forgot your password. It happens all the time. You get a /username. You've kind of locked in your username if that's relevant for the product. And it's all live on a production URL. You can go on your phone, no fancy dev setup or anything like that. You're in, you can't do a damn thing, but you are in. And therefore, anything that we ship and release, you will be able to do and judge and give us feedback on, which is awesome. Don't run from it. It's good stuff. Listen to it. Then after that, you make your product core. Then you can do trending topics. There's two more. Reduce bias. So a lot of people go into making their first product and they watch like Steve Jobs documentary, they read Steve Jobs book, they act like they're Steve Jobs. Not Steve Jobs, nobody's Steve Jobs, not even Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs. You got to get rid of your bias. You're not as good as you think. Just get humble with it. It's a new product. Most of them fail. You're going to fail. Just get a bunch of little failures, not like one big ruinous failure. It's no big deal. So how do you check yourself? One way we check ourselves is occasionally we'll say like, write a believable narrative. Literally write the text message that you would send to somebody saying what you just said. And for some reason, when you translate some kind of concept, some sticky note thingy, and you put it into a text message, and you put it into like a screenplay dialogue, it becomes very obvious. Hey, let's be social and share photos on this new app. Nobody talks like that, and so you would sound ridiculous trying to make the case for that feature. I say we're not friends anymore. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, this one, I still can't come up with a better one for this one, but this is No X Before Marriage. And the idea is, this is another client of ours, went really well. Founder is Adam Fields. It's an art shipping logistics thing. And what this is the first week, I sat down with him. What is everything you're trying to do? First week, come back with this, like, what we call a blueprint. It's very ugly. It's Helvetica, which is a system font, no big deal. Blue, the color blue in HTML. The word blue, I mean, and all of what you get is hierarchy, language, and content. That is what the product is. The other stuff sort of enhances the product, but deep down, like you go, deep down, it's kind of like you can't judge a book by its cover or whatever. Like a good-looking person might be a shitty person inside, that kind of deal. And so this is the person inside right here. And did we get that right? Once we get it right, cool, then we can add in all kinds of like spicier stuff and everything and get people to use it. But you have to evaluate it on what it is, not what it looks like. A beautiful composition will wreck your ability to evaluate a specific design from a product standpoint. It's a brochure, go for it. So trust yourself, that's the last little thing. Early on when you're making a brand new product, I don't think the data's there. I think you got to go a little more on the instinct side of things. You've got people telling you because they're in there. You're doing the gut checks against your thing, but you sort of have to trust yourself. You're the one who, this is what you don't want to end up with. Minimum viable pizza. I think people, when they're inexperienced, they deliver a shitty pizza and they say nobody wants pizza. Obviously, everybody wants pizza. They just don't want your crappy pizza. So, if you're not getting the right feedback early on that you want, like maybe stay with it. Maybe in life you should probably have some good friends around you who will tell you the truth about things, but ultimately you know your purpose and you should trust yourself, right? If the product is going to deliver on your purpose and you feel like it's going to do that, then go for it and stay committed to it. So there it is. Product quality is relative. Remember the Redwood seed, slow, smooth, people ASAP, reduce your bias, trust yourself, and because it's a brand new product, pray to your spirit of choice because you're probably in trouble. And I think that's it. Abrupt ending with gift. Okay.
Cameron, wow. I feel like you get me. And if this whole thing doesn't work out, I think you have a future.
Okay, I'll take it.
So we'd love to open up to a couple of questions here as we close out the night.
All right. Go ahead.
I'd love to hear about, I know you've worked with the future because your attitude to working with startups and taking risks in the venture space versus in paid time, your perspective on that as a creative.
You have to ask that question and I don't understand it.
So when you have opportunities to work equity with startups,
oh, sure.
Take the time, I'd love to think of period reflections on those models and how they
Yes, when we have more money in the bank and they seem especially awesome, we're inclined to take equity, but there's a lot of personality fit that's required because taking equity isn't something we do lightly. It doesn't come as part of like a necessarily like a financial strategy. It's more of like an emotional thing, and you're along for the ride. And we think of it like if we were making an investment, we would do the same thing. So if we would invest money, then we would invest capital in that way. Yeah. People ask all the time, but we say yes only occasionally.
Why do you think the project that you're rolling out is called this? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it failed?
I know exactly why it failed. It did not have a good business model. It was at a time, it was like 4 years ago maybe or something like that. It was at a time when you could still raise money without a really clear business model. And everything else was kind of going for it except for that, but that turns out to be quite a big thing. So we're, for any clients since, especially because so much was going well with just that one piece, we basically are really rigorous about understanding their business model, and if it's not a good fit, then we tell them to not hire us or anybody. So unless they're really rich and they just like hobby or something like that. Yeah.
So of course I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much.
Sure.
It's an amazing way to end it.
Thank you.